Well, good morning and welcome to the Love Well podcast. Glad you are with me this week. I hope that you are doing well. We are uh, officially out of the stay-at-home order, so it's technically been lifted. Sounds like restaurants and different third spaces will be opening up here beginning of the week, and that's really exciting. And so, no more stay at home countdown, if you will. It's good to see things changing, and good to see uh, hopefully the virus abating a little bit here. And so uh, some announcements, just some things that I want to make you aware of. First, on Sunday nights at 7 o'clock, we have our missional communities with the Acts 13 network, and we are going to be figuring out how to go back to real life gatherings here very shortly. And those conversations are happening, and I cannot wait to be able to tell you when, where, all that good stuff. But you can find that information on how to connect with a missional community at acts13.net/events. I'm pretty sure for this Sunday we will be gathering virtually in some way, whether that's via video chat or possibly just a morning message via Facebook Live or something along those lines, and then cookouts or something in the evening. I just don't know. But the details for all those events, the way to connect, acts13.net/events. So I'd encourage you to go check that out. Those of you on Facebook can see I'm continuing to shoot these podcasts via video and audio, and so you can find the archive of today's podcast at youtube.com/Daniel Rose. And you can also follow me on Twitter to continue the conversation at Daniel M. Rose. And then most importantly, I would encourage you to subscribe to the Love Well publishing platform that I've got going at danielmrose.com. I'm writing, recording, and publishing a few times a week. And if you subscribe, it just goes right into your email inbox, and so you never miss what I am creating. This week, we wrap up our final episode in the Leading with Grace series. So we have, over the last, this will be the fourth week. Over the last 3 weeks, 3 previous weeks, we've looked at 3 keywords. This week is the 4th keyword that have really shaped my leadership principles over the years. And so we've looked at humility, integrity, community, and this week we look at presence, and not presence with a TS, but with a CE. So, my hope is that that these past few weeks have been helpful to you. That wherever you're leading, whether you're leading in a faith community, secular environment, with a sports team, within your family, friends, neighborhoods, wherever it is that you're leading, my hope is that these principles that I have found so helpful will also be helpful to you, and that you'll be able to implement them and hopefully create a leadership environment that is one that is rooted in grace and rooted in love. One of the things as I went into full-time ministry, there were a couple things that I wanted to be aware of, right? The first thing was I wanted to make sure that my kids would never regret the fact that their dad was in ministry, and that's easier said than done, because the reality is that ministry demands a lot of a lot of you. It really kind of demands all of you. And so you hear the stories, you see the stories um, of pastors' kids or missionary kids, and they go off the rails, and there's just a lot of pain and hurt there. And so I wanted to be pretty intentional about making sure that that didn't happen. And a big part of that is how I personally I've learned is how I personally lead and how I create teams around me. And the other thing is realizing that there is way more to life, way more to leading than just trying to create some huge following and in building some huge platform, which demands even more time and demands even more sacrifice by my family. And I bring this up because as I think about this last word, this last principle on leadership, this principle of presence, the first thing I realized as I was thinking about this was, for me to be present in my community, for me to be present within my teams, within the leadership communities that I'm building, I first had to learn how to be present with my family. And because here's the reality. Here's the reality. Anybody can do my job. Plain and simple. Anyone can do it. Anyone can be kind of the lead troublemaker of the Acts 13 network. Anyone can lead missional communities. Anyone can go to seminary and study and learn how to study the Bible and all that stuff. Anybody can do that. Anybody can sit here and make this podcast. Anybody can do what I do. I am easily replaced in my role. And that's not to downplay what I do or who I am or anything along those lines. But I have to acknowledge that reality. And part of acknowledging that reality is also acknowledging the fact that only I can be a father to Ethan and Libby. Only I can be a husband to Amy. That's really kind of my unique calling in this world, is to play that role, is to be that guy. Because if I leave my ministry post, I go do something else, Acts 13 may just go away, or the community may call somebody else and they will fill my shoes and they'll probably do a better job than me. But if I go away, if I leave my family, nobody can fill my shoes as a dad. Nobody can fill my shoes as a husband. They can't. And as a result of that, I had to learn how to be present when I was with my family. And that has been an absolute struggle. Because the calling of pastor is not a punch in, punch out, leave it at the office kind of thing. The stories you hear, the conversations you have, the ways that you engage with people, one, doesn't happen 9 to 5. 2, those conversations are heavy, even when they're joyful, right? I mean, even the life is just heavy. The good things are heavy. The hard things are heavy. Life is heavy, and like anyone that is at work with with people who where you're sharing life with people, whether that's a counselor, a social worker, pastor, teacher, these are just not jobs that you can walk away from. You carry it with you. You bring it home. You bring your work home. You just can't shut off who you are. Now, as a result of that, I've had to figure out how do I be present with my family when I get home, when I pull in the garage, when I turn off the car key and I walk through the door. What do I need to do so that I'm present, so that I'm with them? Because I can't really lead well. I can't lead with grace. I can't lead with love if my home is a place where I'm not present. If my home is a shambles, there's just no way. There's no way that I'm going to lead well anywhere else. Now, we can hide that for a while, right? And a lot of people do. A lot of people hide that for a while. But you begin to see the cracks. You begin to see it play out. It may not happen today. It may not happen tomorrow. It might be 5 years down the road. But what happens is when your home life, when you're not leading well in your home, when you're not being present in your home, you bring that kind of brokenness and trauma into your team, into your areas of leadership. And so to learn to be present in my home was and continues to be something that I wrestle with. And so Amy and I have had to have some pretty, we've had to have some good conversations about what does that look like? What does it look like to come home and to be home? And some of that is, trying to be intentional about putting the phone away. I'm terrible at that. Some of that is before I walk through the door. There are times where I sit in my car for a few minutes, and process the day. It doesn't take long, but I take some time to kind of go, okay, what was today like? What do I need to let go of? And kind of put this away for a period of time here so that I can enter into my family and be present. Some of that requires me to finish phone calls in the car before I come in, right? There's one of the things that I learned as we got cell phones was, coming home, continuing a phone conversation as I came in, and maybe went to, my den or office or whatever, continue that phone conversation. That just kind of put things in a bad way, I guess you could say. Just not the best. Just doesn't create the best environment because what it communicates as I come in and as I'm not really home, that communicates that I'm not present here. And so as we as leaders, we have to practice presence. We have to figure out first and foremost, how do we be present in our home? How do we be present within our families in a very real way? The second thing is related. We have to be present with our friends. And again, this kind of goes back to some of what we talked about with the community stuff last week. But we as pastors, we need friends, and we need to be present with them. And that means that when we are with our friends, that we are vulnerable, that we open ourselves up to them, and that we're not afraid to invite them into those dark places and in those hard spaces, that we're not afraid to invite them into our doubts, to our fears, to to things that are hard. Like we have to invite them in. And we do that by being present with them, by showing up, willing to open our lives to those that are closest to us, to those friends who are able to speak truth and love, to those friends that we're really intentionally seeking to do life with. This presence that we have to enter into with them, what it allows us to do, it allows us to release the stuff that we carry with us on a day-to-day basis, because we carry a lot of stuff with us on a day-to-day basis, on a moment-by-moment basis. We as pastors are carrying a lot, and a lot of that is not something that we can put on our families. A lot of that is not something that we can put on our spouses. A lot of that is where we need to go be present with our friends, and we need to say, God, this is what's going on, blah, and let it go. And obviously, you have to let it go in ways that protect anonymity and those kinds of things. Let's be clear about that. I'm not saying you go and you divulge personal details of conversations and things, but what you divulge is the feelings and the emotions that you are walking away with as a result of those conversations. And having a presence with friends, having friends present with you, this is what allows you to do that. And so you have to go and you have to show up, and you have to be present with them. Now, this presence thing, I realize maybe we need to touch real quickly on what it is, what that means when I talk about this. Presence is showing up in a way that is real, that is authentic, where you have set aside your masks. We all put masks on. We all hide ourselves. And when we're hiding, we can't be truly present with somebody. And so to be present is to come as you are, to truly walk into an environment, to walk into a relationship as you are. This is what presence is. And it's honest, it's authentic, and it's vulnerable. But it's a showing up. And so it's not just a physical showing up. It's an emotional, it's a spiritual, it's kind of an all of being showing up. This is what is required by having presence with family, with friends, and then with neighbors. We as leaders need to carry with us. We need to enter into presence with neighbors, with the people that live around us. And the reason for this is twofold. One, your neighbors become your friends. And as we talked about last week in the community episode, too many pastors are told that that's not the way, and that's just a lie, and that's just false. It's just not true. But secondly, as leaders, by connecting with our neighbors, what this does is it puts us in touch with the realities of the world that we're serving. Because a leader first and foremost is a servant. A leader first and foremost is one who is going to set aside themselves for the good of the whole. This ultimately is what leaders do. And we are not going to know how to do that apart from being in relationship with our neighbors. When we're in relationship with our neighbors, when we are present with our neighbors, then we begin to learn what it means to love well. And leading with grace demands that we love well. And we're going to struggle with that unless we know our neighbors. Because when we get to know our neighbors, when we are present with our neighbors, what it does is it builds within us compassion and empathy, because we begin to learn other people's stories. And when you as a leader know the stories of others, what it does is it allows you to enter in a different kind of way. And it stops being about you. It stops being about the thing that you want to accomplish, but it begins to be about how do you come alongside those people in your life that you're seeking to be present with and serve them and love them and care for them. And what happens is as we engage with that at the family level, at the friend level, at the neighbor level, we bring that into our teams. We bring that mindset into the places that we are organizationally leading, whether that's a sports team, class, a business, boardroom, church setting, mission setting, wherever you might find yourself leading. By being present with your neighbors, you learn how to listen. You learn how to care. You learn how to show up and be one of the crew. And for leaders, too often, that is a missing piece. Too often, leaders have insulated themselves so much from those around them that they have no idea how to empathize, how to have compassion, how to care. They become tone deaf. They become, they become people who are just completely tunnel visioned in such a way that they can't see or hear what else is going on. But by being present with your neighbors, you learn these things, and you learn these things through practice. You learn these things just by showing up to somebody's patio and watching how they love their family well, watching how they love their neighbors well. And you learn from that. And as you learn from that, you take that back to your team. You take that back to the place that you're learning because you are present with your neighbors. And then the last area of presence is community, right? The broader community, this bigger picture. We as leaders have to be present in our communities, whether that's your church community, whether that's your business community, whether that's your the community within which you live. There's a presence that has to come through, that we have to engage with, where, and oftentimes when we are in that place, we are in the position of a learner. We are coming under and alongside people who have different kinds of expertise than we do. And when we do that, again, we learn so many valuable principles. We learn how to serve. We learn how to be number two. We learn how to be a follower. As we learn to follow, it makes us that much better of a leader. And we do that by being present in the broader community, where there are other leaders, where there are other people who are experts in areas that we aren't. As one of the things that I get to engage in are community level conversations, and it's hard. I've got a really strong personality. I have very clear ideas of how things are supposed to work and how we should do just about everything. But when I go to these community level conversations and I sit in these rooms I have, before I go in, I have to make a conscious decision to be present. And oftentimes what that looks like is me just stopping, sitting in my car before I go into these meetings and praying and asking God to help me have a posture of learning, help me have a posture of humility, help me have a posture of listening and hearing. And so I walk in, and oftentimes in these meetings, I don't say a word, which for those of you that know me, that's not normal, right? It just isn't. And it's really hard. And I walk out, a lot of times I'm frustrated. But most of the time I walk out going, wow, I learned a lot there. And I learned a lot because I shut up and I listened. And oftentimes that's what being present in community looks like for a leader. It's just shutting up and listening for a minute. You know, over the last since the last podcast was released, racial tension in America has reached fever pitch, and the cries of our Black friends for justice have rung out, and many people are hearing, many people are listening, and yet many people are talking entirely too much. And we need, for those of us like me, we need to listen more, speak less in some of these areas. We need to learn what it means to be present in our community by mourning with people, by lamenting with people, by hearing their story and not trying to explain it away, by hearing their story and not just saying, "Wow, I mean, come on, man, that's just a thing that happened a long, long time ago." No, we can't do that. We can't. There's no buts, there's no ands. Being present in our community demands that those of us that are in positions of leadership oftentimes shut up and listen and hear what is being said. Because what happens is when we hear what is being said, then this hopefully will provoke within us a redeemed imagination to try to help and figure out what are the next steps. How do we move forward? How do we change systems? How do we affect real lasting change so that we can move forward? But we're not going to be able to come up with these things unless we listen and hear. And that is not going to happen unless we are present in our communities. So this idea of presence, as a leader, this fourth principle, I would argue that it's one of the most. I mean, it's one of four, right? So it's got to be one of the most important things. But I think it's one of the things that's so easily overlooked because we get so caught up in what it is that we're doing that we don't think intentionally about being present with those around us, and in our families, with our friends, in our neighborhoods, or in our communities. And so, as you seek to lead, as you seek to learn to lead with grace, learn how to be present. Learn how to be present with your family. Learn how to be present with your friends. Commit to being present in your neighborhood and in your community so that you can use the leadership skills, gifts, abilities that have been put in you to make significant and real change in this world. All right, my friends, thanks for being with me this week. As always, my encouragement would be to continue the conversation with me on Twitter. Follow me there at Daniel M. Rose, and please consider subscribing to Love Well. the channel where I publish what I'm creating through the written word and the recorded word. So blogs and podcasts. I hope that you will subscribe and be a part of that conversation. But thanks for listening. Thanks for being with me. And until next week, love well, my friends.